Here's a demo of editing some windsurfing footage that was shot on an Insta360 camera and then finished in CapCut. I'll go through some of the basic steps and put the finished video at the end of the demo. And so feel free to post any questions in the comments and leave any of your own ideas and tips. But before we start, let's look at the importance of the camera mount. It's really important to have some distance between the camera and the mast or boom that you're putting it on. This one that I made has about 16 inches or about 40 centimeters away, and that really helps. And here's a look at how I made it, just some parts from either Amazon or your local hardware store. So basically what I do is I edit the files in here first, and then I edit them in CapCut. So I'm going to go through and show that real quick. So what you do is you first open up. So this is one clip, and it makes 3 files. Basically, there's 2 files one for each camera on the front and back of the camera, and then one file which is like a smaller version for editing. And I usually just go ahead and open all these. So it opens to this screen here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and show you kind of the steps that I do to edit this. So the first thing I do is I just kind of look at this clip here. Okay, so I'll figure I'm going to use from this point about here, just to orient you to the screen here. You can move the screen around with your mouse like this to get in focus, to focus on what you want to look at. And once I'm there, I'm going to hit a keyframe by doing this. I can click on this right here, and some more options come up. You see it added a little yellow keyframe. And if I don't want that there, I can X that, and it goes away. There's another way to do it too. You can actually drag with your right mouse, and you see it made one there. Now, once I've got a keyframe there, I can move the screen around to where I want it, and the settings for that keyframe will be adjusted. So there it is right now, looking at me from above there. So the next thing I usually do is, once I kind of know where I want to start, I'm going to move that all the way up there. The next thing I do is I'll sort of try and find a fairly kind of standard piece of footage. Okay, that's probably fairly standard right there, like that. I'm going to put a keyframe there to hold that in place. And the next thing I do is I go over here and I change the color. Now, often when editing, this is one of the last things you do, but I kind of like to see what it's going to look like, and even if it's going to turn out before I mess with it too much further. So on the right side here, there's some menu options. First thing I do is I turn on this Aquavision. This kind of provides some presets, and they're usually pretty intense. They all look that doesn't look too bad. This one right here doesn't look too bad. So C, and you can change the intensity of that setting. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit here to like 70%. And once that is on, the next thing I do is I make sure these adjustments are up here are showing. So there's a whole bunch of adjustments: exposure and brightness, contrast, saturation, things like that. I'm going to now fine tune it to get this a little bit better. So everything's very dark. It was an overcast day. The Insta360 camera works really well when it's nice and bright. But when it's overcast, it's not so good. So let me see. I'm going to bring the shadows up a little bit. There we go, like that. So first I want to kind of get it the right brightness. That's not too bad. I'm going to saturate the colors just a little bit more, bring them up, add a little vibrance to it. It's maybe a little oversaturated. There, like that. I'm going to turn the definition up. That's the crispness. Looking pretty good. Now, once we've done that, we can always come back at the end before we render this out to make some final adjustments. But that's looking pretty good right now. So just to kind of give you an indication before and after, if I turn these adjustments here off, looks pretty dark. If I turn the aqua vision off, that looks really dark, because you can immediately see what a huge improvement those settings have made. So once I've got that, the one other thing that I like to check is, I think it's probably on, but if I go to up to settings and preferences, I want to make sure that this Ultra HD preview is turned on. What that does is it turns, when you turn that on, it shows in the preview screen here, it shows sort of the highest resolution that it's going to output at. So, and there's a little button here. Let's preview that in full screen. There we go, like that. So that's looking a lot better. Okay, so the next step, once I've kind of got the colors around, the next step is let's go through and get some footage here. Okay, so let's put a keyframe right there. We'll add a keyframe. Now what I like to do is there's on each of these keyframes, there are some sort of adjustments of how of distortion correction on the lens here. I actually use linear quite a bit. Linear tends to kind of straighten out the horizon. You can see, there we go. The horizon's kind of straight. So you can play around with the different warp settings for each of these keyframes. So every time you add a keyframe, you can change all these settings up here. Now, one thing you'll find is there's a little crosshair in the middle here. See that little yellow crosshair? The further away from that crosshair that the image is, the more distorted it gets. See how my helmet here is starting to look a little bit bigger in comparison to the board, especially, and up here now, see how it stretches. And as we come over here, as I move this around, things kind of stretch a little bit. So what I like to try and do is keep what I'm wanting to focus on fairly central around this crosshair. So now I'll come and make these adjustments. So there's two ways to kind of make the adjustments of where the position of the camera is. You either move the cursor around like this, so you grab hold of the screen, move the cursor from side to side, or up and down. And then similarly, I can, just grabbing the numbers here, I can go from side to side this way, or I can go up and down like this. I can also rotate the image. So this is kind of it rolls the camera around. And then there's also zooming in or out. And this little one is a kind of a distortion control. It kind of does similar to what the zoom in and out does, really. So really, most of what's left to do with this is just go through and do just what I did there. I don't usually take that much time, but go through and just select the keyframes that I want. So I'm going to start right here like this. I'm going to put it back on ultra, it's a little less distorted. There we go, like that. And I'm going to kind of zoom in. And one of the little tips is, see if I'm zoomed out, it really distorts the horizon there. It's almost like they call it the tiny planet. Looks like I'm on a tiny Earth there. Whereas if I zoom in, one little trick here is zoom in so you can't really see the horizon anymore. Now that kind of visual distortion isn't as distracting. And that's looking like a pretty good direction. So I'm going to keep that one right there. And then what I will usually do is just kind of click through, rather than hitting play, because that can take a long time. I'll just kind of click through to find where the next bit of action is. So let's say that was the next piece of action I wanted. And then I'll kind of clean that up a little bit as well. So it's a little bit rotated around. I'm going to use just rotate. Now, when you add these keyframes, it basically uses the same settings from the prior keyframe, and then you can just edit it from there. So usually you're just adding a keyframe and making one little adjustment. Another thing you'll find too is sometimes you get water drops on the lens. See that right there? And it's obscuring some of the image. what I'll very often do there is try and move the action around a little bit so that it's not quite so, it's not kind of the focal thing, if that makes any sense. The water drops are still going to stay over that piece of the image. You can't change that. But if you're not really looking at them, so for example, if I change this shot so I was looking out there, it doesn't become the focal point. I'm going to change that to linear. I'll just give you an example of straightening out the horizon there. Okay, so we're going to start off there, and then we're going to go look to where I'm traveling. So that's another little trick that I like to do, is not always just have the camera looking at the same place. So the camera can kind of move around a little bit during these clips, so that adds a little visual interest. So right here, I'm not in the frame, so let's add another keyframe there, and let's move this up and out, and that's all you need to do right there. So it keeps that same linear thing that we had. We can always change it to get rid of some of that distortion. So we'll just keep that there. So you get the idea. It's just a matter of adding some keyframes. And the other thing I like to do is kind of go back and look to see where we've come from. So what I'll tend to do is put a keyframe there, same keyframe, I'm happy with that shot. Go forward a little bit and put another keyframe in, and then go back and look to see where we've come from there, like that. Again, this, when you're looking at the horizon, it's a little off-putting, so we'll make that straight like that. Rotate it around just a little bit so it's straight. There we go. And now we're looking back to where we came from. So when I play that, kind of got a close-up view, don't really see much of the horizon there. It's not too off-putting. And there we go. We swing around, and now it's on a linear with the horizon, so we kind of see where we've come from. So as you see, I've got quite a few little keyframes in here. So there we are looking back at the horizon. It's nice and straight. And now we're coming back and looking at the board. Now one little tip here, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on this timeline. So this is, this was the looking back at the shore where we came from, and then back to the board. Now one of the things you can do, I don't do it too much, but if you click between these two keyframes, the speed, you can control the speed that comes back. Like right now it's just linear. So as the camera goes from here to here, it just goes smoothly, you know, this even speed from there to there. But what you can do is do a little bit of a speed ramp. And I kind of like to use this one here so that it starts off slow, and then it comes, and then it speeds up, and then it ends slow. So it's a little bit of like a speed ramp. So let's look at how that looks now. So I don't know if you noticed that, but it started coming back slow, it sped up a little bit, and then it slowed down again. So that's sort of a little bit more of a dynamic kind of shot that makes things look a little bit more interesting. And we could have done the same thing on this one here. Just click between the two, do the speed ramp. So now it kind of goes slow back to the horizon, and then back again. So really that's it's just a matter of going through and doing the edits by hand. Now there is a way, if we open back up on this, you can click on this auto frame and it will try and follow, or it's kind of takes a while, and it goes through and it tries to guess what the interest of the subject would be. But I just found it doesn't really work very well, especially on kind of windsurfing. You got a big, you got a big rig here that's out of the image. You got some board. Sometimes you want to look at people going by, and it really doesn't do a good job. So I usually I never use that. So this is really all I do. And then once you're done with auto getting these little keyframes in, you're pretty much good to go. Okay, so for this one, we want between here and here. So we're going to render out between here and here what we just edited. And the way we do that is just go up to here, and if all our colors and everything look great, I'm happy with that. We just click on export. So once that's exported, it'll take a few minutes to render that. Once that's exported, we're good to go. And I now will go into CapCut and edit the clip in there. And usually I'll have multiple clips and maybe another audio file that I'll want to edit together. Now you can use, they have a project. There's a little project tab up here. It's a simple editor within Insta360 Studio, but I really don't use that at all. Let's go now over to CapCut. Okay, so here's CapCut, and what we're going to do is import those files that we rendered from Insta360 Studio, these ones here. Okay, so we're going to pull these in. I've also got an audio file here, a music track that I might as well throw that on there as well. There's a couple of things I'll show you with that. There we go. Now again, I'm not a expert with CapCut, but I'll kind of show you what I do to edit these Insta360 videos. So the first thing I usually do is to drag the audio track over here. And what I'm going to now do is pull in some of the video that I've made from Insta360. Now, I always kind of like to try and start off. I've got some kind of shots on the shore, kind of remind myself what these are. So this would actually be a good maybe like establishing shot there. So I'm going to pull that one in there like that into the timeline. Then how about we go to one of carrying the rig, and then we'll do one getting ready to go out, and then we'll do one sailing. So you've got your timeline down here, you've got your preview screen up here, and then you've got some adjustments on the right here, and you've obviously got the media that we just pulled in here, and then you got a few other tools and things up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight in and just start editing this here. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to just grab this first part and drag it up. I want it to start right off with that music. No point in waiting around. There we go, like that. So we have the music starting right away. So if we play it like that, just by hitting the space bar, or you can hit play up here. That plays that. So the one thing that I do quite a bit if I'm doing music is there's a nice feature in CapCut. If I right click on here, you can add marks where the beats of the music come. So I'm going to click that beat one, and it added them right away. So on the timeline, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. You can see it's got beats. So I'm probably just going to run this little clip of on the beach for like 2 beats. And as you see, if I move everything, because this little magnet is turned on here, this icon, it just shuffles everything back. So that's good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of carrying to the water. Let's see this right here. Maybe just a couple beats of that. It looks pretty much all the same footage. So let's just move that there like that. The next one, looking at the water, probably if I end that one where it stops right there, that will work. So I drag this back, and let's try and do 2 beats. So I need to come back by 1 beat about this way, right there like that. So we've got 2 more beats of that. Let's see how that's looking. So the camera zooms around, walking to the beach, water. And and then the sailing can start. So what I'm going to do just before I forget right at the beginning here is I'm going to fade that in. We're going to make sure the cursor is the beginning here, make sure this clip is highlighted, and this little diamond, we're going to click that. So you added a little keyframe, and we're going to come in a little bit right to about there, add another keyframe. So this is going to be full opacity, and if we go back to the beginning, the little arrow will jump back to the keyframe, and then we'll turn this all the way down to nothing, to the black like that. So let's play that, so it should fade out from black. Boom, there it is. So that's a little bit of more of a smooth entrance. So now that we've got that, I don't like to do too many special effects between cuts, just a straight cut is good. Occasionally it makes sense to do it if the cut looks a little strange. Okay, now we have some sailing, so that's not so bad. It's a good place to start, bumping up and get up. So we've got 2 beats here, 2 beats here, 2 beats here. So now if we want to cut this here, rather than dragging the ends to it, we just do Control B, or there's this little icon up here, and if you see there's the shortcut that says right underneath it there, Control B. So I usually use the shortcut Control B to cut that, and we'll go find a little bit more footage. Is there some footage of it's maybe facing forwards? There we go. So I'm going to see where the camera stops, right there. I'm going to drag this to that point. So we've kind of gone through sailing, shot forward. Let's come back. Okay, and let's get another bit of footage here. I'm going to cut this. What do we have up here? We must have a jibe pretty soon. Okay, there's a jibe. So that's a fairly dramatic piece right there, that jibe. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to see there's a little marker here. I've got this clip highlighted. I'm going to click on mark. And I'm going to line that mark up there with, it looks like there's that. Probably right there. So you can visually see that in the audio there go up. So that means I'm just going to cut off a little bit. It's like 2 and a bit beats. So let's see. Just going to shift it back a little bit, and let's just going to get that to line up right about there. Looks about right. There we go. So that hit the spot. Okay, so let's bring in some more footage. So let's go to some of the footage that we got, and you can, if you select, hold down the Control key, select them all, and drag them all in, they'll all kind of go in order. One thing on the timeline, if you click this little thing, it'll zoom the whole thing so it fits in the screen. Okay, I'm entering the jibe, the midpoint's right there. So I'm going to add a mark. And we only need a couple beats, it's very short. So let's just let's cut it right there. Control B, cut it, we'll go back and then just backspace to delete that. And now it's moved back over here. So we only need just a little bit. We'll go right into the jibe from this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this magnet off. I'm going to line this mark up here. It wants to be up there, that's all right. And I'm going to there we go. So now when I put this over here, it's now lined up on that on that beat right there. So so that's pretty much, took a while. It probably took 10-15 minutes to do that. I was talking through it, but that's pretty much how I edit. The last thing I probably want to do is, remember how we did a fade in at the beginning? We'll just do one at the end. So if you see if you can remember how I did that, highlight the clip, get the cursor to the end so you can still see that in the frame here. We're going to go up to this blend. We're going to make a keyframe on the opacity there. That one is going to go down to 0 in a minute. We'll do a fairly long fade out. We'll add another one there. So we'll go back to the other keyframe. Easiest way to do it sometimes is on that little arrow up here. And then this one goes down to black. And then what we'll also do on audio, I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's a little dot right there. And if you drag that over, that will make the audio fade out. In this case, it looks like the audio fades out on its own. So let's see what this looks like as far as the fade out goes. Visually, there we go. That's kind of the ending shot. And the fade, there it goes. And the music also fades. So there we have it. So what I'll do is I'll put this, I'm gonna play with this just a little bit more, and just to make sure the timings are all good. And once I'm done with that, all I'll do is click on export and save the file, export, make sure the settings are right. This is probably okay, 4K, 30 frames a second. Might want to change it, but that's probably fine. I think the footage is only 30 frames a second anyway. And what I might do too is I think I do have a pro version of this. You can export in Ultra HD. File size will be a little bit bigger, but that might help it. That's it.